And we are live. This is Ian Nethercott with the famous Auto Hub show. And this is the Fixed Stop show every Friday at 5:30 East. And I thought I would start the show today with a clip from a retention show. A good friend of mine, Barry Jordan, he actually runs a Ford store in my local market. And he has a killer onboarding process to keep staff once you hire them. Obviously, we're not talking about that today, but I thought it was a good lead in. Of course, you can check out the whole interview and the whole show, but let's start with Barry. Here we go. So I misquoted that. I obviously it was a little later in the thing, but if you want to watch the whole interview, you can check out the onboarding and retention show. Barry goes over his process, which is like very thorough, from like inviting the person in and going out to lunch and this and that, and a bag of chips, and it's a great show about that. But Barry runs a significant Ford store in my market. Anyway, so I'm going to stop for a second. Here we go. And here we go. Here's our new trailer. Do-do-do. Okay, share again because I'm on Zoom. There we go, share. Sure. Here we go. And that's it for the trailer. We are looking for sponsors, by the way. So let's get into it. So I have actually two people that I know very well. I have Joshua Taylor, who's muted, by the way. And then I also have my brother, Sean, my older brother, who works with Larry from Larry Feldman from Career Changers USA. And full disclosure, he's a sponsor of the show. And Larry will probably drop in. He tends to do that. So, Joshua, why don't you start by telling us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and answer the following question. How do you think dealers can attract more technicians in 2025? And I'm actually going to put up a little survey here on the screen that I got off LinkedIn today about what employees care and don't care about, which I thought was pretty interesting.
I am Joshua Taylor, founder, host of French Turners Podcast. I go back a long ways. Been in the automotive industry or around the automotive industry for almost 25 years now. I'm a licensed technician. I've worked in the service drive. I've gotten the big chair as a fixed ops director. I've gotten the really big chair as a GM at a collision center. I've worked with digital marketers. I've worked with software developers all around automotive in some capacity. I've worked on and in power sports stores, fixing power sports stuff. I've done a little bit of everything around the industry in some capacity. The last 3 years, been building a business around technicians, focusing simply on helping technicians be happier, healthier, more productive on the shop floor in various capacities, coaching, surveys, content, so on and so forth. Next step forwards is doubling down on the content aspects of things, trying to get in front of one-to-one, like actual one-to-one in-person content with technicians to talk about things that are important to them, and talking about two brands that care about technicians in certain capacities, because there are folks out there that say they care, and there are folks out there that actually do care. And I think that's my tidbit. How do dealerships take the next step, next level, however you want to call it, in 2025 with technicians? And I think it's care. You need to actually care, not say you care, not put lots of pomp and circumstance on what the ad looks like or what the in-store experience looks like. Actually care. So, that clip at the beginning there, Zanino was talking about an onboarding process for an individual coming into a store. And it's obvious, even just from that little snippet, not even from the original poster or folks who was actually talking about their onboarding process, it shows that store takes the next step, the next level to ensure that the onboarding process of anybody, not just technicians, is actually cared about. Who are you? What are you doing? How are we going to communicate? This is the experience that you're going to expect here at this particular store or this particular brand. We want to make sure you feel comfortable, you feel safe. We want to make sure that you communicate anything that is good, bad, or otherwise. That way we can provide you a working environment that you feel safe in, so that you not only can produce more for us, but produce more for yourself.
Yeah, and in subtle disclosure, Wrench Turner's podcast, there'll be details below. if you are a wrench turner or in the fixed op side. Obviously, I do a podcast on Fridays, but wrench turners have been around for a while. So without further ado, we don't have Larry on yet, but Larry works with my brother Sean, who's got a family history in the car business, being that we've been in it for 3 generations, but is a headhunter by trade. So he would know more about finding people if that's what you're looking for. So Sean, introduce yourself and talk a little bit about how you do that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, and it's good to see that everybody's thinking about how to attract and retain people, not just because somebody quit or retired last week, because that tends to be when it's the focus. So I've been in recruiting predominantly in professional services, so accountants and senior management for pretty close to 20 years now, and have done some work with trades and other things over the years, and now I'm looking forward to working on some projects with Larry. So really, in my experience, both from a perspective of family, but also in dealing with everything from big oil and gas companies to small business, and all this sort of areas in between, is, there's good employers and employers that people will almost always tell you, I love working here, or I tell my friends that I love working here. If a job comes up, I tell them that this is the place they want to go. And to Joshua's point, it comes down to, not just thinking about staff when you have to. It's, keeping staff, attracting staff has got to be something that's part of your daily routine, and that, getting feedback from staff, because something small on the shop floor can turn into, one guy leaves and goes up the street to a new place. The next thing you know, you've lost half your shop, and now you're chasing after people, taking whoever you can get, because you can't take on business anymore because you don't have enough techs to do the business. That is where these kind of things become a big issue. So I think, part of that is just thinking about, hey, do I know what's going on? Do I know how everyone's feeling? How are the leaders in the group doing? Do I have the right people in the right jobs? This is something that you should think about all the time, not just, someone quit and now it's time to worry about.
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. And I believe Josh was talking about that as well. But I know there's a big thing in the fixed side, thanks, Sean, about employment, work environment, and pay. I know this is something that we've been talking about a lot in the auto industry in all departments. I mean, what's your thought, Joshua, on the pay side? Is that like the thing you hear the most, or is that just part of it? What do you think?
Well, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. It really, really doesn't matter your industry you're in. The folks at the bottom of the totem pole are always going to complain about wages. It's just a fact of life.
Right.
The challenge is there is a lack of understanding, a lack of communication, and a lack of leadership surrounding pay. So there's a lot of rhetoric around flat rate. I'm outside normal. I love flat rate. I really love flat rate. But I have a caveat to flat rate. The only way flat rate works is if you have the right business and the right high value leader leading the team of flat rate technicians. If you don't, flat rate is the worst pay plan on the planet. Period, bar none. And the reason that is because high value leaders care. And this is back to my original point. They care. So they're going to know what their team is doing. They're going to know what their team is saying. They're going to know how the team is operating. They're going to be doing one-to-one coaching on a regular basis with the entire team in some capacity. Maybe you're in a large store. It's very difficult as a service leader to manage 100 technicians. So you have to have multiple leaders managing all of those people. But those leaders are the ones doing the one-to-ones with the technicians. So managing all of that is still one-to-ones, understanding sentiment, understanding empathy, understanding how these people operate on the shop floor. Conversely, that same thing You're talking about attracting technicians in 2025. If we're expecting technicians to do video MPIs, in many circumstances for free, I'm not for or against free or paid MPIs. That's not what we're going to get into today. But we're expecting them to do video. We're expecting service advisors to do video. We're expecting salespeople to do video. And yet, not a single one manager that I have seen of late, save one, my buddy in crime, DTJ Daryl Terrell Jr., is actively doing video for himself and the team to show what it's like to work at the store, right? My friend and compatriot, Zach Perkle, doing active video about the store, what it's like to work there. Who are you working with? What's the service drive like? What's the culture like? Put it on video. How can we be, as service leaders, be so hypocritical to say we expect all of these people to do all of this video to showcase our store, and yet as leaders aren't doing it ourselves to showcase the store to attract talent in?
Josh, it's easy. It's simply easier to tell other people what to do than to look in the mirror and make sure you're doing what's right.
Yep, 100%.
Again, why the conversation about pay gets squashed as soon as you have a high value leader. High value leaders change lives. They really, really, really do. You can take somebody who has been bashed in the face for a decade as a technician or as a service advisor. You put them in front of somebody who knows how to lead. It's like the last 10 years of trauma didn't exist, because they feel wanted, they feel needed, they feel validated, appreciated, and cared for. Again, I use that same 4-letter C word, care.
Hey, Josh, and they're in the end of the business where there's the least appreciation. People come in to buy a car, they're happy, they're excited. Nobody's excited to be in service. Why is it broken? Why wasn't it fixed the first time? So that's where we need even more nurturing, and you get even less. It's a very strange hit to nothing.
Why didn't you know I was going to get a flat tire an hour before I went on vacation? Why didn't you know about this, right? I'm in a $5,000 vacation that I got to go drive to. I'm going to go drive down to the marina to get on the cruise ship. And if I'm late, I don't get on the boat, and then it's gone. Like, it's your fault, right? And we have all kinds of those conversations. The service drive, I call them 445 specials. We talk about service advisors and technicians. Having a vehicle come in at 445 that needs all this and bag of chips, one of the greatest Canadian phrases ever.
Well, this is a bag of chips.
I love it. And being able to sell it as a service advisor and know that you've got a team of technicians behind you that are going to take care of the customer and they're going to be happy to pay for whatever that 445 special is. That is the thing that service leaders and general managers need to be looking at. How do I cultivate a team atmosphere so that when a customer comes in, it doesn't matter what time of day it is, it doesn't matter what the challenge is or what's wrong or what's broken or whatever, that customer can come in, feels like they're cared for because the team is caring for them.
Yeah.
How do we go back?
Josh, one sec, that's endemic though with dealerships. How many, even on variable, how many people walk into a dealership and ask about a sale car or something, and nobody's told the team what's on sale, what the new rebates are, what the new programs are? That just seems to be endemic in our industry, front and back.
Larry, does it matter what industry we're talking about? Because from what I understand, when you go outside of our automotive bubble and you talk to anyone in retail fashion, you're talking to anyone in retail mobile sales, meaning phones and tablets and things of that nature, it doesn't sound like it's any different anywhere. So I don't think it's endemic necessarily just to automotive. I think it's
endemic on the planet. Ian, if you don't mind me sneaking in a commercial and Sean, it's really great to see your smiling face.
No worries.
May 21st, myself and Sean Armour are going to do a sales BDC workshop. We're going to have a ball. We're going to make people better. And Joshua is going to do all the videography. We're super excited to work with him.
Right.
Josh, the reason I'm bringing this up, A, is a commercial, and B, to reinforce your point. I have reached out to 10 hotels. 3 of them actually talked to me. The other 7, I'm waiting to hear from. I guess they're not as hungry for money as everybody else should be.
And let's double down on that. How many days is that? How many days is that? Is it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days where those 7 haven't talked to you?
Well, it started yesterday, but listen, it's just the world we live in. There was a time when there was a certain civility And people didn't want to offend you because they didn't want to offend you. And then past civility, there was, well, I don't want to lose my job. And if so-and-so complains, I will. Now people just don't care. They go, screw it. I've already had 9 jobs in 2 years. What's the 10th going to make any difference? So that's why when you do have good techs, good salespeople, a good wife, husband, kids, you got to let them know you appreciate them and you care and you want to nurture them. Because if not, they'll find somebody that will care and nurture them.
So from that standpoint, Larry, what would you say is the most important priority for a service leader, for a GSM and GM? From that standpoint, obviously picking up the phone would be one. But what's one thing that these 3 leaders, service leader, GSM, or GM, can do tomorrow? Actually, tomorrow's Saturday, so
Probably not.
Monday morning, 9 a.m. They walk into the shop.
Yeah, and you've heard me say this before. I had a 2-piece plan. It worked wonderfully for me where my guys up front hated my guys out back, and I changed that. First, you need to have regular sales service meetings. So the silos come down and they're not strangers. The other thing, and this is really simple, but boy, did it work. When I did a big contest at my store, it wasn't sales against sales. It was sales, service, BDC parts, and a body shop. And the detailers cut into 3 pieces, all battling each other. All of a sudden, people that didn't know each other, didn't like each other, were best friends. We got to pull these people together. We've got to convince them that everybody needs everybody. Right? If you're a great salesman and you can't get your car cleaned, and that people think of it overnight and change their mind. If we don't sell the car, you don't have anything for service. And if service doesn't keep them happy, they don't come back. So it's a matter of pulling everybody together, showing it's a symbiotic relationship. And I think it's just being nice to people and being responsive. Listen, how did I get involved with, and I'm lucky to be involved with Ian's brother, Sean, great guy. How did I get involved with Ian, and how did I get involved with you? I reached out to you, you reached out to me. We started an immediate, long-lasting friendship. It's not complicated. I'm very inexpensive in terms of recruiters. But it's still a lot of money to replace people, not to mention all the stuff you lose in the middle. So you would think, particularly in service where there's far fewer techs than there used to be, they would take the time to nurture them.
Yes, 100%. And the thing that I would say that actually is attractive, other than yourself, Larry, but attractive to get people in.
I was going to stop the call because I don't never said. Way ahead.
If you're doing those, as Larry suggests, you have a phone and a $25 tripod that goes up 5 feet. Record it. Just record those once a day, every day. Pull something from that
That's your
meeting.
Josh. That's your mistake. Most people don't know how to use the phone. They don't understand what the buttons are for. They don't understand that green button to answer a damn call. So that's your whole fallacy. You know what I mean?
Well, they can use a camera. It doesn't matter whether it's a camera or a phone, but set up a camera and video that.
Well,
take something that doesn't say anything private or anything inappropriate. Obviously, you want to cut the cussing out when you're talking about on the shop floor and things of that nature. You don't want
wait a minute.
You don't want to bleep that out.
Videos, guys. You by now you guys are all tired of seeing my videos on LinkedIn. Testimonials, my little questions. What would happen if a manager did a 15, 30-second video and had his arm around one of his guys in the shop and said, "Man, am I lucky to have so-and-so as the tech? Boy, do you believe what a great service advisor we have here?" What would that mean to the people and to their family to see that I'm appreciated, I'm cared, and the boss knows who I am?
And that's why I bring him up, because DTJ does that very, very thing. He picked up the torch that Sean Butler put down, and he has been keeping it up. I'm pretty sure it's either weekly or bi-weekly that he's doing it, but he is showing his staff that he appreciates them. And more importantly, he's showing his guests that he appreciates his staff. He's highlighting how awesome they are. And that little tidbit can go a very long way, because you remember, we're talking about exponential value here. You look at your Facebook feeds, your Instagram feeds, YouTube feeds, it doesn't matter what social platform you're on, any one of those, and you see hundreds of videos about service leaders and GMs talking about their staff, and how awesome the staff is and how awesome they take care of the guests is. It's not a hostage picture. It's none of those kinds of crap. It's literally people talking and have a conversation, showing appreciation, gratitude, and empathy about the store. You see that in spades. What's going to happen to your store? From a recruiting standpoint, Darren doesn't have to
Is that guy doing a really great job with his staff?
Absolutely.
Would you do me a favor? Would you ask him to knock it off? Because Sean and I like it.
Fair enough.
Well, it's funny you bring that up because years ago we did, I think it was at Used Car Week, Gail was one of our sponsors, did a demo of how to do a TikTok video with a room full of general managers. And you can check out the clip on the thing. But what was funny about it wasn't that. What was funny about it was the number one watched TikTok video in automotive is what department?
It was service, and the texts were happy, and the videos were short and silly, but they got unbelievable response. I remember that. Remember they made us wear sunglasses.
Yeah, the response from a technical video from a tech side that's interesting is something like 10 times the response you get from a salesman trying to show a car, for example. And it was interesting because you bring up the celebrating the techs, and there's a group, I think they're called Centes, and they do a lot of that. And there's a bunch of other groups who do it as well. But I'm not sure. I think it's Valley High Toyota. He does some crazy stuff. But at the end of the day,
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's
the whole team over at Valley High is amazing. We were on last night, and we were talking about social lead generation and social channels, and Brian was on there. Nathan, I can't remember. I don't think I could pronounce Nathan G's last name to save my life. And Nicole, again, I don't think I could pronounce Nicole's last name. But late on in the show, Robin Wilson came on and started talking about all of the different things that she does specifically for sales and variable, and talking about what they do for social through Social Grenade and all of those kinds of things. That's the kind of stuff that you need to do for sales and for service. Like I understand that there's multiple different groups out there that are changing pay plans around making sure that the team posts social, right? I don't remember who it is. There's all kinds of different ways. Like you got to make a post a day. There's a reel a day. There's different staircases. Like you're gonna post one reel, one short, one post a day, or something like that. If you do that, you just get money because it's part of your job. So if you do this, and this, you get paid this. It's part of the job. Well, if we did that for service advisors, the same kind of thing. It's like, hey, if you do 2 posts a day talking about the store in some capacity, it doesn't have to be, hey, we got a $9.95 oil change, or we've got a $89.95 four-wheel alignment. It's not talking about that. It's just talking about the store. Just drop the name of the store in a video. It's like, hey, just having lunch here on my lunch break here at Valley High Toyota. And I just had a great interaction with a customer that had a 2024 Toyota Sienna XLE, and they didn't know how to set up the Bluetooth on their $80,000 van. So I spent an hour with them on the phone and just literally coached them through it because they were 3 hours away on vacation. That's the kind of story that's going to resonate with, maybe it doesn't resonate with 18,000 people or 100,000 people, but it resonates with 2 that go, wait a minute, service advisor spent an hour on the phone and fixed something, and there was no work order, there was no money changing hands, that's where I want to take my car. And then you got a service advisor who now is building a book of business, and now you have technicians who are all of a sudden, all of this extra work is coming in. And what happens when you have a really, really busy shop? It stays busy. It stays busy, and technicians love to complain. And when they don't have anything to complain about, what do? We tell everybody, I'm making so much money. I'm making so much money here. Listen. Fred's leaving in 2 months. He's retiring. You got to get in here. Get your resume in here today. Fred's leaving. He does like 16 hours a week, and he's 65. You need to get here today. Talk to the service manager. Fred's leaving in 2 months. Get your butt in here now. Let it do recruiting for you.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny that you bring it up too, because when you're looking at recruiting young techs, and more importantly, techs from the next generation, as we see older techs out there, you got to spread the love about the dealership, but also you got to spread the word. Like if you're a customer looking at, say, 3 different Toyota stores, and one's got a huge presence about how great their experience is, both from staff and maybe from customers, you're probably going to get your Toyota fix there, right? I mean, I always use the example of that dealership in Oregon, Beaverton Toyota, because it has a crazy busy shop, but that's just part of their strategy, right? Like it's really about standing apart from that other group that could fix your car, right? And
Exactly.
doing it
And
right.
there's really no difference between attracting young generation talent, attracting old generation talent, and attracting customers,
Yeah.
because it's the same content. You don't have to make something specific for each one of them. You don't have to double down on all of this creative and all of this production and all of the video and all of the cameras and all of the talent. You don't have to do that. You really, really don't. Video is super, super easy in today. Like, pick up the phone, make something simple, and publish every day. You do that every day. It's like investing in your future.
Yeah.
Right? As a service leader, invest in your future with video. That's my biggest play. It's a little bit biased. I'm promoting video. But I digress. It literally, customers and technicians and service advisors and salespeople, let the world know who you are and what you do.
Exactly. Like we interviewed a guy, George Saraglu from Toyota Store in Toronto, and he does videos every day where he just does one take. There's no editing.
George.
It's just crazy and that kind of stuff. And I did an interview with another gentleman out of Arizona. I think he's a Nissan fanboy, essentially, sells Nissans. And he says, listen, I sold 90 Nissan Z, and Nissan USA was like, how the hell are you doing this? Like, we need to talk to you about what we're not doing right. But Sean, you had a thought? Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to go back to what Josh said about the fellow saying to his buddy, hey, you need to get in here because somebody's leaving. And, to me, and I think Larry'd agree, and Josh definitely agrees, that, the best kind of attraction strategy is if your employees are going out saying, hey, you need to get in here. That's the way to get the people who will work with the team and make a team, right? Because they already know each other, so presumably they're going to get along. But that kind of environment where people are going out and preaching to everybody, whether it's through video or phone or at the local bowling alley on Saturday or whatever people do in their spare time now, that's how you're going to get the best quality of candidates, the best quality of staff, and keep your team cohesive so you don't have to worry that people leave and people are coming and going. And just going back to the whole compensation piece, because we haven't really gotten into that, but very rarely do people change jobs from a job where they're happy because someone offered them a little more money, right? If someone's only making $20 an hour, maybe 22 is a big deal for them. But generally speaking, people are in a job and they change jobs because of all of these things that aren't working for them while they're there, right? And it's not it's not about money. It's not even about something like how many times they get a hat or a party or any of those things at work. It's, how do they feel going to work? Are they happy every day? And are they feeling that there's a path for them to make more money and be more successful and move up in the company? And if they don't have that, and oftentimes people go, well, they're just service techs in the back and, they're here. They like to monkey around with engines and stuff. So Larry referred to it very well to say, car dealerships are big enough companies that you get these divides between staff and front and back. And that will kill a company a lot of times with talent attraction, because it might be a great sales organization, but nobody wants to work in the shop, or a great shop, but nobody wants to do sales. It's getting everybody to work together and have that cohesive environment that's key to any sort of company, whether it's automotive or not. So that was just my thought.
You
got a
rise
comment.
your level of
I got a
ambition,
comment.
your level of tolerance, right? So
I got a comment. I got a comment from LinkedIn. I got a comment from
jobs where you're at a place and you're going, I really don't feel like going to work today because this place is terrible and I don't like my boss and I don't like most of my coworkers. Someone comes along and offers you the same amount of money, you're probably going to leave, right? Because you don't want to go to work, and why be miserable all the time? But if people are happy, like, it usually takes more than just a little bit of money to get them to move. So, focusing on making sure people feel supported and part of the team, that's the real key.
I got a couple comments from Marshall Sheldon from LinkedIn. He says,
Marshall.
He says, incentivize text to actively recruit for you. It works really well. And I've generated several leads from the gram, that's Instagram for the older folks, for apprentices. He also says you can meet a lot of younger techs on Instagram and other platforms because they might not be looking on other platforms for those kind of roles. So that's I think some great advice. Also, what else did he say here? Oh, he likes the discussion. That was the other comment, but it's all good.
The big thing is Marshall's become the brand ambassador for the company he's working for MHC, and he has spent a lot of time, energy, and effort over the last, I want to say 90 days, give or take. I could be off on the time. You can correct me in our group chat.
Yep.
But he spent a lot of time, energy, and effort posting every day, sometimes several times a day, what it's like being on the job, talking about and taking pictures of what he's actively working on, taking video of what he's actually working on, and having a discussion about what it's like to work with him every single day. Now, Marshall's been around the block a few times. Marshall's working on like 17 years in HD. He is, for lack of a better term, he is a service advisor, service manager, shop foreman, and lead technician all wrapped in one, out in mobile country, fixing big iron. So he's got, I think he's got 3 apprentices under him now that he, actively either takes the truck with him at the same time, or they've got a couple different trucks. I don't remember exactly how that's laid out, but he's leading a small team, and he's doing brand ambassadorship for the brand through social media. So he's attracting talent to his own very small team all of the time. He's attracting customers to the business all of the time. He's focused and really driven to make sure that the business plan for the business is successful throughout the year. He's looking at daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. He's looking at the numbers. He's able to get in and really affect change within his own team. That's him caring for his team as a service leader. The step up is that he's got a business that's very supportive and making sure that he can post on social, making sure that obviously brand, mission, and values is succinct on the stuff that he's posting. But he's posting these things to grow the team. As the team grows, the business grows. As the business grows, everybody makes more money, right? At the end of the day, we're looking to grow the business and make more money. But he's using social to do that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's this confusion around social, and I think that was a great example. We were talking about TikTok with Gail, because it was like, you've never seen a funnier scene than like 50 general managers trying to do a TikTok video with direction. Like it was hilarious to watch, and they like had no idea what they're even doing. But to your point with video, like it's really about just getting out there and doing it. Initially, it might be a little bit intimidating, and I remember when I was working for Dealer Facts, they were trying to get techs to shoot still images and video in the actual bays, and they're like, dude, like that's not a good idea. And they're like, no one's paying us for this. To your point, but I mean, a lot of these dealers don't even pay for inspections. They're not paying for that, right? So, I mean, I think part of it is just treating them fairly, but also saying, hey, we want you to have fun. Like that was what the TikTok thing really struck for me when she showed some examples. The reason people watch technicians is they don't see the technician when they're in the dealership. They see the service writer, like who's the guy in the back or the gal in the back doing that? I don't know.
I think your point is well taken, though, Ian. There's a lot of people who maybe aren't comfortable doing videos, posting, and especially older techs who, they use their phone as a phone, not as a video editing suite or whatever you call it. But, the whole sentiment, like what Josh was saying about the guy who's got his apprentices and he's mentoring them and he's showing that process. And, the difficulty comes, he's got 3 apprentices now. If he ends up with 30 people working under him, using mentorship and getting the right people and promoting from within. And it doesn't have to be, he's got 30 years as a tech to be a mentor. It's having the right kind of personality. I find not so much in automotive, but in other areas, like people expect to get promoted just because I've done my time. I've been here and I've been here 20 years and therefore I should automatically be a manager. And you're like, okay, but you're a terrible manager. you know, that's not your skill set. You're a great tech, but you're not a good manager. And you may have somebody who has a lot of potential. So for management to see that and be able to, you know, okay, let's try him out and have him mentor one or two people, see how he does, and develop that within. That's how you create a really strong culture. So to Josh's point, he's out there working with these guys, and hopefully he can then scale that out. So, you know, because like you say, in a small team, it works great, but you get into 20 or 30 people, it can get lost in a hurry if you're not actively managing it. And that's part of the challenge, but also the reward, because if you can build it out and have, you know, champions in there and good leadership, and you find them, and not everyone has to be a great leader, you need people to do the work too, but being able to identify them is often the biggest problem. Like, we've all probably had jobs where you've got a guy who's a manager who shouldn't be, and he's there because it was easy to put him there, but you're losing staff because he doesn't know how to manage people. And
yeah, I think that's a problem, not just in automotive, but I think
it's everywhere.
Any vertical. And to your point, not everybody can be a leader. And I think we've grown soft over time. And this is why I continue to say the predicament that we are in, the endemic that we are in, at least just in automotive, and more than likely in other industries, but at least just in automotive, it's our fault as mechanics because, as I said, you don't rise to your ambition, you fall to your tolerance, and we've tolerated poor leadership. I mean, we've tolerated poor leadership for a very, very, very long time. And to your point, it might work for 3 and it may not work for 30. But what I do know is that in a team atmosphere, when you have someone leading a team, it doesn't matter whether it's 5 or 50, if that leader has been put there by management without any one-to-one communication with the rest of the team, that leader is never going to be successful, even if they could be a good leader. They're never going to be successful because the team isn't bought into who is leading them. In this circumstance, Marshall, specifically, I'm picking on him, but Marshall is part of the hiring process. Marshall is part of not just the hiring process, he's actively on social trying to recruit. Then he's part of the onboarding process. Then he's part of the hiring process. And he's part of the interviewing process. He is looking for a fit, for a person that fits on the team so that not to disrupt the team. This, at scale, is what true leaders do. They want to make sure the team cohesion, your mission, your vision, your values are all in every single person on the team. It doesn't matter whether you're at MHC, Ford, Dodge, Honda. It doesn't matter. That mission, vision, and values, if the leader has not been put in that position of leadership by the team in some capacity, that buy-in, that leader is not going to be successful, no matter how awesome they are. I recall a picture recently of an individual who was on the stage with, I think it was 8 Super Bowl rings or something like that, who can't get a job as a coach. Probably because whoever is leading those teams don't see him as a good fit for the team. Now, is he an awesome coach? That many Super Bowl rings? Yeah. Yes, he is. But it doesn't mean that he fits with the teams that exist currently. It would be far worse for any team to take on a coach or a leader when they don't jive with 50 to 75 people. Like, that makes no sense. And it doesn't make any difference whether it's 3 or 103. It doesn't matter. Fit matters. So when we're talking about attracting talent, you got to make sure you're attracting the right talent. And if you're posting yourself online talking about attracting talent, whether it's through recruitment, whether it's through ads, whether it's through social, email, it doesn't, your community events, it doesn't matter. Unless you're getting yourself out there, showing your mission, your vision, your values, your culture, you can't attract the right talent.
Oh, 100%. I mean, you've got to make it attractive. But go ahead, Sean. You had a thought?
I was just going to say, you know, like, part of that is Marshall, who I don't know, so
it's okay.
But he's spending every day thinking about all the parts of his job. So training the apprentices, developing leadership in the apprentices, but also how do I get new people? How do I scale this? And that's how you can really attract people, because if it's okay, let's see how many cars we can move through here, and then the month end comes, and how much did we do versus what we said we'd do, and can we do more? And then, well, you know, we need a new tech. Okay, we'll call somebody and put it on the internet, and we'll have to interview them. That's not the right approach. And to your point, Josh, you need an organization that supports, that says, you know, having the right people in the job is vital to our success. And if we aren't thinking about this every day, we should be. And that's how you're going to get to that point where, you know, instead of having to, you know, have a nightmare every time somebody retires or quits to find somebody, you're going to have people coming constantly, and the people who don't fit, you can say, hey, you're not a fit. You know, we're sure you're a great tech, and move on. But, you know, we are looking for people who fit in here. And that's really the key thing, is to have that choice. And to your point, I've got friends and colleagues who manage huge teams. And I would say, you know, their expertise is in managing people, not whatever it is that the team does. So having a really good service manager is probably less important that he's the best service tech known to man, but that he's a really good manager, because, you know, he needs to be able to do the job, but he doesn't need to be the best in it. And that's where a lot of the confusion comes up, is, well, we need the best possible guy to lead the team. Well, no, you need a guy who can lead, and then hopefully he can do the job. But it's the leadership that's more important. So that was my comment.
One of the best right, Sean. If the manager makes the techs feel good, they'll do the work that needs to get done. You're 100% correct.
Yeah, and they'll be happy doing it.
Another comment from Marshall. Most of every day is spent in the back of my mind how I can grow my business. Techs are the key to that. So I can grow my current techs and attract new ones to the farm, and that goes with that. So that was pretty good. Well,
from a slightly different standpoint, from attraction standpoints.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the greatest things that I've seen from an attraction standpoint is being transparent and publishing, not necessarily video, but publishing who, what, where, when, why, how, global 30,000 foot view information anywhere and everywhere about the position, the store, the leaders, everything. A friend of mine, Ansley Williams, does an absolutely epic PDF document. And I don't know whether she supplies them to John Fraser, or John Fraser has somebody else do them for him, but they're effectively and similarly done in different ways. They're showing what the geographic area around the store is like. You know, what's the culture, what's the ethnicities, what's the demographics, what's the incomes, you know, what businesses are around the store in the immediate area and the slightly larger and catchment area. You know, what is the demographics of the business? What are the demographics of the places around? And then they break it in, and Ansley breaks down things like, what is the average income in the store? What's the average income in the shop? And how many hours on average? And what shop tools do they have? And how many times do technicians go to training in a year? And what's the budget for the training? Literally laying out, and it's a really big document. Like, I think the last one I saw was like 18 pages or something ridiculous like that. It was really, really big, but it's really well done, and it's really simply communicated so that anybody can read it anywhere.
Hey, John, but also John is one of those guys you're talking about that's just a spectacular leader and guy. Spectacular.
Right? So they're publishing that kind of stuff to make sure that anybody that might be interested. I might be another state away, might be in another country. Let me get some basic information on, okay, does it make sense to move? Like, maybe we're in a population dense area where, you know, I got to make $120,000 a year in order to live, right? And $120,000 a year means my wife still needs to work full time, and that means daycare, and that means this and that. What if I go to Wisconsin? I can make $80,000 a year, and my wife doesn't need to work, and we can buy a house, and she can take care of the house and take care of the family, if that's your values and wants and desires to do. But those things might be the opposite direction. Maybe they're living in Wisconsin, maybe they want to live in a population dense area because they want all the food, they want all of this, and they want all of that. And the point is, without having that piece of material that's done all of the hard work for a technician or a service advisor or a salesperson, they don't know. They're not going to do it themselves for the most part. They're not going to do the due diligence like that. It pays up to $45 an hour. Oh, awesome. It pays up to $45 an hour. How do I make $45 an hour? I'm making 22 now. That would be awesome. They take the job, they get there, and they realize that they're going to get $28 an hour, and they're not going to make any money because it's a slow shop. Like,
Yeah, I mean,
Let's talk about it.
tell people what it's about. Like it's like when you see jobs on any platform where they don't even talk about what people make at all. It's like, here's a form letter about what we do, what we want, and then what's it pay? Who knows? Like, apply, I guess. You know,
DOE, which is depends on experience.
And
they
why
put
does
it as
why does that
DOE.
matter though?
And no one
Why
knows
does that
what that
really
means.
matter? Because experience to me is experience is getting less and less valuable. And the reason I say that, because I know there's 25, 27, 29-year-olds out there that are busting ass 12 to 16 hours a day. And I'm sorry, if you're working 16 hours a day, you're putting in 2 years in one, right? So when you see 7 years on a resume, it's not necessarily 7 years. You might be 3 years because they don't care and they don't really put in the time, the energy, and the effort. Or it could be 14 years in 7 because they've literally worked their hands to the bone every day for 7 solid years, got their master tech certifications, got their ASE certifications, got outside aftermarket certifications, got extra diagnostic certifications, and they are hardcore about this job. So the experience level is, for me, especially after doing some coaching and doing some and getting feedback on surveys, experience is getting less and less. I want to see drive, I want to see output, I want to see communication capability, and I want to see certifications and training. Like, if for every year in, you need to have a serious amount of certifications under your belt. And I mean real, genuine, either branded, aftermarket, NCM, doesn't matter. Get the training, because that's the stuff that's going to make your paycheck go from 22 to 32 to 42 to 52.
And to your point, I think Barry, the fellow at the beginning of the show, when Ian and I met him, and he spoke about his onboarding process, one of the things he brought up is we take everybody out to lunch. And he said, but it's not just so they feel appreciated that, the receptionist or the guy, the lot boy who drives the cars around gets to go out to lunch. It's that they can then see how they interact in a casual setting with the people around them. Because, you interview somebody for an hour or two, and you read the resume and they say they can do everything in a bag of chips, as you said earlier. And
ketchup chips.
You're taking a big risk there because he's got 7 years experience. It seems to be good. It's at the same kind of brand that we're at. And, okay, let's give him a shot. But you don't know how he interacts with others. You don't know what experience he actually has. Is he the kind of guy who sort of half does a job and then they got to refix it the next time? Or is he the guy who's going above and beyond? And that's really the trick in retaining the right people, is finding those guys and being able, and, Barry, to his credit, said, how they interact with the waitresses and waiters and staff at the restaurant.
I love that one. I love those ones so much. Take them out for food, take them out for lunch, and see how they interact with wait staff. That is like almost like the perfect interview.
Oh yeah, and he does that as a mandatory part of the process. Like, it's like we hire them, then we take them out to lunch, and then we decide whether or not we're going to hire them, basically, right? Because if they're clowns, then that's the end of that conversation.
But it's absolutely true that if you do that, you learn a lot about people in that setting that you didn't. You could do 4, 5, 6 interviews with people and not learn much. You take them out to lunch and see how they interact. Often they'll tell you more than the interviews where they're on their best behavior and they've got all their answers worked out in advance if they've done any sort of prep for it. And this is the stuff that is where you're going to find the right people and build the right kind of team. Because, it might be fine for some places where everyone goes to work, doesn't talk to each other, and then leaves. But, if you want a social environment in addition to just work, you want people who are of the same mindset. And I think that's an important part of it, is that kind of a process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Got more comments from Marshall. Blue collar Matt. I got 30 years experience, but you're only 35.
Overtime fan.
Yeah.
Exactly. Overtime fan, absolutely.
And the last one, what do
Absolutely.
you think about technician's resume as 10 years of work history, but 5 different shops? What do you think? Any comments?
That's
Go
standard
ahead.
practice right now. Standard practice right now, unfortunately.
I mean, you know what? The key thing in my experience, and I've recruited everything from CEOs and board people down to someone who's going to work for 2 days on an hourly basis, maybe unloading a truck or something. You know, I'm not so worried about where they've gone as long as there's a good reason for all the changes. And furthermore, I think this is where, and a lot of times with more blue collar staff, it's harder because, you know, when you're talking about doing references, you know, a lot of people have lots of great examples, like I was here and they sold the dealership or something happened and I moved, and then the other place they didn't have enough work, so I moved, and that sounds fine. But if you get those references and call these guys and say, well, yeah, I didn't show up or whatever, it's the totality of it. And let's be honest, when you're hiring somebody, it's a judgment call 110% of the time, right? Like, you know, you spend a couple hours with somebody, do you know them? Especially in that environment, because I always say, hey, a guy who's a fantastic interview will often not be your best employee because he's going to get every job he interviews for, like my daughter. And if she needs another job, she'll just put out her resume, get a couple interviews, and she'll be gone. Whereas the guy who's not so great in interviews, he's going to struggle a bit, and he's going to be happy when he gets the job. So that
There's a couple of things there to talk about, because you're talking about communication, right?
Yep.
Talking about an industry, you're talking about specifically about technicians. Most of us don't have adept audio skills, right? We are tactile and visual people. We like cars, sound good, it go fast, like the stuff that gets us into as 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old men and women. That's the kind of stuff that folks who aren't super awesome audio learners and communicators do. It's just kind of what it is. The shortfall here is, I believe, parents and schooling systems aren't doing those folks justice because they don't fit the mold, right? You need to teach these people how to communicate. If you can teach them how to communicate, they can then eloquently describe how they feel, eloquently describe what they believe should happen professionally, right? How many times you've been told off by a technician and then immediately given, I'm done, I'm out, toolbox on wheels, right? I can guarantee that just about everybody watching or listening to this in some capacity has had it happen at least once, if not many times. And how often is that breakdown because of communication? Maybe the leader said something they shouldn't. Maybe the service advisor said something they shouldn't. Or conversely, maybe the technician said lots of things they shouldn't. And the professional communication goes both ways. Unfortunately, many folks in service don't have degrees, don't have that built-in adult level need to understand how to teach myself things, how to learn things, and all of the reading that goes along with higher level education. The challenge with trade school is that it's very, 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 very technical. When you read textbooks in any industry about trade, it's written with grammar, obviously, but it's not written to expand your mind. It's written so that you understand the concept of the thing you are fixing, how it comes apart, how it goes back together, and how it operates. Sometimes it only gives you how it operates, not the functionality of how the intricate, tiny things work, like how electricity flows through stators and rotors and all of those kinds of things, especially now we're getting into EVs. It doesn't teach us those things. And we've had no reason to learn at a higher level. So the communication level is much lower on average than those with degrees. Now, I'm not saying degrees are better or worse or anything like that, but those who have degrees tend to speak more eloquently, tend to understand audibly, because they've had to sit in lectures where they've had to take notes and learn something from somebody who only lectures. No textbook, no notes. It's literally they write on chalkboard or they write on a grease board, and you got to write it down from what they're saying and what they're writing. That's not something that technicians typically have to do. So we need to teach them how to respond professionally in an audio-based scenario. We have to teach them how to respond professionally in an audio-based scenario. Obviously, we got to get better at work orders because, ladies and gentlemen, some of your technician stories are horrible, but some of them are absolutely epic. They would pass through any warranty auditor's fingers and go, yep, 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 even though it might have not been fixed properly because it's so eloquently written. We're talking about communication. We're talking about attracting technicians. We're talking about hire properly, train passionately, lead professionally, which is what John Fraser says. And to a post that happened a couple of weeks back by Ray Hernandez, pay properly.
We're almost out of time, just so you know. So we've got time for final thoughts, but go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, like the important thing is, you know, it's just as important that management, especially senior management, who may have gone to university or be very eloquent because they're in sales, learns that, you know, communication is not just, you know, I had dinner not that long ago with a guy who'd gone to Harvard or Princeton or something, and he seemed to use words that had 10 syllables. Like, I knew what the words meant, but I didn't think.
What's that, a $2 word and a 10-cent conversation or something like that? Is that something?
You know, like, there's a simple way to say something, a long-winded way to say something, and I know you spent $500,000 getting your degree, but, you know, it's not helping the average person to understand what you're saying, what's the point of communicating if you cannot actually communicate, right? So I think, especially for techs, it is very much, like you said, a tactile thing and something where they are dealing with, you know, tight tolerances on cars. You know, it could be a gasket that's worn out and the engine won't run properly. And if you don't know that, it's going to be tough. And for a sales guy going, well, you know, who cares? It's just a bit of rubber or plastic, whatever they make them out of now. That is a divide that we have to try and join up in the middle to say, hey, you know, they may not be orators on the level of Winston Churchill, but who do you want?
I don't think just about anybody is anywhere close to Churchill. That oratory.
He wasn't my first choice, but that's when it came to mind. But the bottom line is, you know, guys who can speak well, they should probably be in sales because that's where they're going to be able to do it. And the guys who can fix things are probably in the back. And, you know, everybody, like, the reason our society works is that everybody's got their own role, and hopefully we've got people in the right roles so that they can do all these things and support them along the way. So I think, you know, from a management perspective, learning how to communicate with people in the shop will save you an awful lot of trouble, because if you're only talking to the manager, you know, you should be going back there and communicating with everybody, because if the manager is not doing a great job and they all want to quit because of the manager, how are you going to ever know if you don't ever talk to anybody? So that's the other challenge, right? Anyway, sorry, I interrupted.
No problem, Josh. A lot of final thoughts. What do you think?
I think functionally care. Show you care. Don't just talk about caring. Actually show you care. Do lots of one-to-ones. From an attraction standpoint, make sure that you're telling the world who you are, what you do, what you stand for, your mission, your vision, your values in any way you possibly can. Talk to trade schools, talk to high schools, talk to colleges, be on premises in as many community events as humanly possible, talking about your mission, your vision, your values, your culture of your store. I think the John Fraser's phrases stand fast in everything you do, whether it's hiring, whether it's recruiting, whether it's keeping people onboarding, whatever the case may be. Definitely pay appropriately. There is a line that many folks don't necessarily follow, but you have to lead more importantly than you need to pay, because there's a lot of really adept people out there doing things at a pay that you wouldn't expect, because the leadership is so epic. So that's a big deal. You know, using the mindset that it's more important that I keep a teammate than it is keeping a customer should be something that everybody's thinking about these days. there's more and more and more and more customers. And whilst I don't like thinking of the customer second, I think in this industry, in terms of trade, we need to start thinking about the technicians and the service advisors first. Their well-being, their making sure that you're empathetic to their needs, their wants, their desires, to make sure that they stick around, they stay, they grow, because it's far cheaper to keep them and even pay them more, even if you don't necessarily think they deserve it or warrant it, or whatever the case may be. It is far cheaper to give somebody a raise than it is to try and replace them. And almost every single time, unless this individual is toxic and corrupting the team in some capacity, it almost always makes sense just to give them a raise, even if you just gave them a raise or whatever the case may be.
Right.
Now, conversely, hold them accountable. That's the last little tidbit. Accountability is the most important thing that isn't done en masse, both from top down and bottom up. If you're not holding your team accountable for all of the little things, they're going to nitpick on all the things that aren't done, that you aren't doing. Hold them accountable, let them hold you accountable, make sure that you show that you care and prosper.
Fantastic. And if you're going to be, if you're looking around about tires and service and how to sell tires, that's the next Friday's show. So if you want to know how important that is and why you should be doing it, be on that show next Friday. Same Friday time slot, 5:30 East. Thanks very much to Josh from Wrench Turners and to my brothers Sean and Larry for joining the conversation today. And remember those things. Pay people properly, treat them with respect, and hold them accountable. Have yourself a great weekend. And if you want to check out the onboarding from the Larry Show, it's about retention onboarding on our YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Yep.